We are at the point of the evening where we want to call upon our guest speaker to provide his keynote address. And as you would have seen from the program, our guest speaker is Mr. Tshediso Matona, who is the Commissioner of the Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Commission. Mr. Matona is a seasoned public servant of 3 decades. That's 30 years, Commissioner. 30 years, of which 16 have been served as Director General. He was Secretary of Planning in the National Planning Commission in the Presidency, South African government from 2015 to 2021. Currently, Mr. Matona is the Commissioner responsible for promoting compliance with the Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Law. He served as Director General of the Department of Public Enterprises from January 2011 to 2014, and the Department of Trade and Industry, now the DTIC, from 2005 to 2010. He was the Chief Executive of Power Utility Eskom from 2014 in October to May 2015. He served as a trade diplomat at SA's Embassy to the United Nations at the World Trade Organization in Geneva, Switzerland from 1996 to 1998. He holds bachelor's honors degrees in economics and political studies from the University of Cape Town, a master's degree in development economics from the University of East Anglia in the UK, various certificates in international trade from Switzerland, executive leadership and management, infrastructure development from Harvard University's JFK School of Governance in the US, and catalyzing change for sustainable development from Stockholm University in Sweden. He is a fellow of the Chartered Governance Institute of Southern Africa and has served on various boards of state-owned companies and non-profit organizations, including a position of board chairperson. He also serves as an executive director of Mindosa. The Commissioner's lecture will be entitled B-BBEE and Transformation in South Africa, Reflections on Opportunities, Options and Challenges to Implementation. Please help me welcome the Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I'm very pleased that the evening has arrived at the main course. We've been having very nice starters for my talk today. Let me just say that I'm very, very pleased to be here. I bring warm greetings from the B Commission, from the Department of Trade and Industry in which we are housed, from the government of South Africa, of which the Commission is an important arm. I greet you all. I greet Professor Vasu Reddy, who's the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research and Internationalization, representing the Vice Chancellor here, Dr. Mbulelo, I'm told Dr. Mbulelo, the head of the Department of Small Business Development, might join us. He was held up somewhere. Professor Serges Kamcha, the Dean of the Law Faculty, Professor Elizabeth Sneeman van Deventer, the head of the Department of Mercantile Law, members of the business community who might be here, members of the Black Management Forum, I'm told that they will also be here, the university community, the students community, colleagues who are accompanying me on this visit, ladies and gentlemen, and I dare not forget the choir for their beautiful rendition of music. We thank the university for the opportunity to reflect on the policy of broad-based Black economic empowerment, which serves as our country's tool for promoting transformation and economic inclusion in South Africa. And I know there are many people out there who consider the subject of BEE and transformation a matter of fundamental importance to who we are as a country, as a nation, and what kind of future we envisage for South Africa. As such, I consider it a matter of existential importance, one that deserves respect and responsibility in our conversations about it. And yes, conversations that must be ongoing, conversations that must continue, because transformation is a project. But equally, conversations that must bear fruit, that must take us forward. It is indeed fortuitous that we are gathered here today to reflect on BEE and transformation at the very moment when the subject has been thrust into center stage of public discourse at home and abroad on account of utterances and executive decisions by the newly elected United States President Donald Trump and some members of his administration, and their interactions with members of South Africa's AfriForum and Solidarity civil society groups. I had, in any case, planned to talk about the international aspects of BEE as a way of benchmarking. So these developments, in fact, reinforce the importance of locating BEE, locating the policy in a global context. So, the international observations are as good a place to start as any. What is remarkable about the narrative that accompanies these developments triggered by the US president is the way they are turning South Africa's history on its head. In particular, South Africa's race relations history, by suggesting that white people in South Africa are being targeted and discriminated against. On the contrary, what the world has always known about South Africa, is the centuries of colonial oppression, colonial dispossession, and domination of indigenous Africans, and its incarnation in 1948 as apartheid, and its denial of black people's human rights, as well as their economic and political exclusion through a battery of racial discriminatory laws, unprecedented in the world. Indeed, so egregious was the injustice that black people were subjected to in South Africa under apartheid that the world rallied behind our struggle and declared apartheid a crime against humanity through resolutions at the United Nations. And through this concerted action, the world helped pave the way for the transition to democracy, in which the people of South Africa, we signed on to reconciliation. We signed on to being a united people. We signed on to non-racialism, non-sexism, and equality as principles that we would be governed by, which are enshrined in our Constitution, the Constitution that we adopted unanimously, through all our political parties in 1996, and which serves as the supreme law of the land. Ironically, it was in the United States that international solidarity with the plight of black people found its strongest and most broad-based expression through the anti-apartheid movement that emerged there. And thanks to the resonance between the struggles of South Africa's black people and the struggles of African Americans in the civil rights movement. The global context is also important for South Africa because today, in today's world, in many parts of the globe, public policy has long incorporated the principle that proactive and targeted measures are necessary to promote socio-economic upliftment and inclusion of certain population demographics, of certain geographies within countries and regions. And this out of the recognition that it would not be achieved by market forces on their own. For example, in the US itself, where the concept of affirmative action actually was born, or in Malaysia, to reconcile and include marginalized groups there, Indians, Chinese. But even within the European Union, through what they call regional policy, it's a policy that targeted underdeveloped regions of Europe to divert resources to them for their upliftment. So all of these approaches of targeted transformation have actually evolved into formal policies globally, going under different labels, such as diversity, equity, inclusion, and even find expression, for example, in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I was actually heartwarmed when I walked in here and I saw a banner with Sustainable Development Goals, which embed the concept of transformation through proactive action. Or even of late, the phenomenon called environment, social, and governance, ESG standards, all premised on the recognition that stability, prosperity, and sustainability require overcoming socio-economic disparities and broadening participation and belonging among citizenry. So if there is a positive from the developments triggered by President Trump's stance against our country, it is to remind us that our transformation is unfinished business, to confront us with the question, what now about BEE? It is to drive home the fact that the matter of BEE and transformation is our domestic issue. It is our sovereign issue that is best answered but by none other than ourselves. And in thinking the answer to this question, it is necessary that we also correctly characterize the issue to ensure that we do not address the wrong issue. So in this regard, for example, you hear some misleading descriptions of BEE as ANC policy or as race-based policy in some media quarters, which reduces it to party politics as something that can easily be dispensed with. It is to divorce BEE from its fundamental rationale and its rootedness in South Africa's democratic constitution. It is not about party politics, it is above party politics. It is a foundational matter, a constitutional issue, in which the people of South Africa, when we adopted this constitution, we proclaimed that, and I quote, we recognize the injustices of the past. And we believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, including its economy. South Africa's economy belongs to all South Africans. And that we commit, the Constitution goes on, to heal divisions of the past and to establish a society based on social justice. And to this end, that we shall adopt laws and other measures to advance persons' disadvantaged by unfair discriminations, including through the use of public procurement. So it is important to appreciate that the B-BBEE Act of 22, well, the original B-BBEE Act became the legislative expression of these constitutional principles. And that this happened after extensive engagement, consultations, and compromise. Many of you who are old enough to remember those debates will know that there was at some stage the notion of nationalization, large-scale nationalizations of the controlling heights of the economy. But the outcome was that neither would that happen. As a compromise, that was abandoned. But equally, neither would it happen through do nothing, leave it to the market policy. In fact, from its beginning, the model of B-BBEE was very modest. It deferred to business and economic logic and rules, as much as it also deferred to conscience, a sense of what is right and what is wrong, meaning that actually compliance would be voluntary. The approach is compliance, do it because it's the right thing to do, not by compulsion. Even, for example, the initial scoping that is led by organizations like the NAFCOC, National African Federations of Chambers of Commerce, of the likes of Dr. Mutsuenyane and others, they focused on very modest goals of advancing black people in senior management positions in the private sector. It was only after a commission of wise men and women chaired at that time by our current president, Cyril Ramaphosa, in a commission to look at how we advance economic inclusion in South Africa, that it began to be concerned with the legacy of apartheid and focus on the need to change the racial composition of ownership in line with the equality and redress clauses of the Constitution. So out of that was born then the legislation as we know it. Of course, the phase of B-BBEE that followed at the time involved transactions that featured high-profile personalities, typically those with close proximity to the top echelons of power, of politics and business, and that in that way had the this unintended phenomenon in turn came with some reputational harm to the policy, that it was for the few and chosen. Of course, that's not true anymore, because the more recent broad-based, in fact, the broad-based part of the policy was added because it was to say it cannot be for the few, it must be for the broadest base of our people. So it is not true that it is only a policy that benefits a few and chosen. In 2013, the legislation was amended, as I said, to broaden it, to deal with matters of human resource development, human capital, enterprise development, preferential procurement, skills development, and the promotion of the acquisition of assets by black people. It has also established the B-BBEE Commission because it needed an authority to oversee, to monitor, to guide, to advise, to advocate, which are the functions of the B-BBEE Commission. But it also started to introduce some sense of penalties because of what has emerged and still continuing to be circumvention of the policy through fronting and misrepresentation. But as it evolves, it was clear that the policy also needs a broader supportive ecosystem. The codes of good practice, which enable uniform implementation, which enable measurement. The verification regime, verification system to affirm and confirm BEE credentials. The issue of funding through the establishment of the National Empowerment Fund to promote and facilitate access to finance by black people. In fact, access to funding is the leading constraint to advancing transformation. In particular, access to unencumbered funding. Current funding, the dominant funding out there, tends to be accompanied by onerous conditions and lock-in periods that diminish the accrual of economic value by black shareholders. But it also involved the establishment of a management development program, which is an academic program offered at the University of South Africa and WITS, to provide for a standardized curriculum for the verification industry, to equip candidates with the tools and knowledge to work with the legislation in various spaces, in business and in government. So, monitoring of BEE in the era of the Commission, as I reflect on 20 years, the journey, 20 years, because it's 20 years actually this legislation has been in force. The truth is that it is already established as part of the policy architecture and toolbox for promoting transformation. It's already embedded in the economy. And with the establishment of the Commission, we are dealing with a challenge that was previously there, that there was no monitoring, there was no sense of how far are we, how do we tell how far are we with the policy. And so the Commission has been striving to build an evidence base of progress on implementing the legislation. Because evidence gathering is a critical arbitrator in debates about BEE. And I'm sure it's an area that certainly I'm looking for in our partnership with the University of Free State to contribute into. Because it is easy for anybody to claim that BEE has failed without any clear empirical basis for saying so. But my view of the country's scorecard on BEE is that it is a mixed picture. It is neither true that BEE has failed, nor that it has been totally successful. It is work in progress. Our data tells us that important inroads are being made towards meaningful and productive participation by black people in the economy, thanks to the policy. Whether one is looking at the increasing numbers of black people who own and run their own businesses, or who are suppliers to governments and big corporates, who are managers, directors, professionals, and who are acquiring productive skills, as well as communities who are beneficiaries of social investments that companies are making to contribute to BEE, contribute to transformation. But much more still needs to be done. We estimate black ownership by looking at the BEE certificates of companies that we collect out there in the market. And for a couple of years, they've been telling us that the average black ownership in any given period is 30%. It varies a bit. And black women ownership is 14%. But you must have some sense of context, because this is a context in which black people constitute 92% of South Africa's population. 92% of South Africa's citizens are black people. So you've got to have some sense of perspective. And by the way, this is a recent census, State SA census. White people constitute 7.8% of the population, and yet they own and control anything 70% and upwards of the economy. We are doing another study where we've gathered a much more wider database of certificates, and initial indications show that, in fact, the numbers for black ownership are actually less than the number that I've just given you. We also track major transactions, any transactions, BEE transactions, 25 million and above, which are submitted so that we can vet them and make sure that the black people stand to benefit from them. And we've been doing this since 2017, and we've looked at 705 deals with a value of 1 trillion of assets acquired by black shareholders. So there are steady improvements in the BEE scorecard. You know, when one looks at things like enterprise and supply development, skills development, and so on. But the norm is that the targets are not fully met. At any given point in time, average achievement across the scorecard is about 60%. It is important to make the point that for as long as there is not a sufficient participation of black people in the productive sectors of the economy who create businesses, we will not be able to address the challenge of unemployment in South Africa. There are just too few employers in the economy. So we must manage this policy in a way that creates sustainable businesses that can employ more and more of our people. So I've spoken about the challenges confronting BEE. I won't go through them, all of them, but let me mention a few. We see that implementation is not all companies, some do it, that integrate BEE in company strategies, so that whilst it promotes equity, it also supports the business to grow. There are companies that get it right, and so have become vested in the policy because it ticks the right boxes. But there are also companies who still do window dressing, where black people actually are not beneficiaries. I've spoken about fronting, where we still find that some people make gardeners, cleaners at home, domestic servants, directors, without actually informing them of their rights and without affording them the benefits of their directorships. Of course, there are other sophisticated forms of fronting. So up to now, since the Commission has been in office, we have handled 1,300 complaints, BEE-related complaints. Many of them, about 84% of them being about fronting. So, transformation is happening, but it is slow because implementation is inadequate. For most of our people, the black people, the expectations of the policy remain unfulfilled. Poverty, unemployment, and inequality is still the lived reality of too many of our people, posing a menace to social cohesion, to us being a country at peace with ourselves. It's an indictment. The state of affairs is an indictment. It's an indictment on both the government and corporate South Africa, and begs questions of, is there buy-in? Is there commitment to transformation? There's no doubt that this is one of the most contested policies existing in our country at the moment, since our transition from apartheid. It shouldn't be surprising, because everywhere in the world, matters to do with the economy are terrain of both competition and contestation. There are matters involving vested interests and aspirant interests, of haves and have-nots, of insiders and outsiders. So this is political economy 101. We don't usually take a political economy lens to BEE, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't have political economy dynamics of its own. And I'm sure this is a line of inquiry that could be interesting to researchers and universities like the University of Free State. It is important that we keep in mind that BEE is about the problem of a racially skewed ownership, opportunities and participation on the one hand, and the tool. Because some people quarrel with the tool, and it's not a perfect tool, in a way that seems to suggest that there is no problem to be solved, that there is no need to make a fuss about the status quo. I believe that as a country, we have reached a crucial moment of needing to reflect, perhaps even reset, of needing to find each other and to be self-conscious about the imperative of transformation and the direction forward from here. This is on account of our score sheet, our scorecard as I've given you, but also on account of the challenge that is emerging from outside of our country, that is presented to our sovereign right as a people to determine what is right for our country. I am encouraged that the government of national unity that took office last year has, in its statement of intent, made a commitment to transformation and an inclusive economy as one of the priorities. But is this a no-brainer? Because that commitment to transformation by the current government, the GNU, is an acknowledgement that the problem for which the policy was created to solve still prevails, that the status quo is untenable and must change. And in my view, an acknowledgement of the problem is halfway to finding the solution for it. The question is what's going to be done. So the president, you hear him, even when he opened parliament, recommitted to the policy. So the policy is still on the table. My minister, the minister who is the custodian of BEE, Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, has also said that we start with what's on the table. We've gained much experience from utilizing the tool. There are achievements to build from and shortcomings to be learned from. As the BEE Commission, and personally as a commissioner, in the way I know the policy and the legislation, I believe that the potential of the policy has not yet fully materialized. We have not yet, to quote a phrase, emptied the cupboards. We have not yet emptied the cupboards in terms of implementation. So as a commission, going forward, we will continue to promote improved compliance, improved implementations, and improved outcomes. We are going to continue to scan the environment for ideas and opportunities that promote progress with transformation and combat anti-transformation threats which emerge from time to time. So, what is our to-do list going forward? We must improve compliance and implementation. We are a country governed by the rule of law. There must be compliance with legislation, especially this legislation. We need to focus more on impact rather than on inputs. Companies report we spend so much money, we spend so much, but we don't see the impact. So we need to shift our eye on impact. And again, it's an area that the partnership with the university can assist us. We need to strengthen the ecosystem. We need to incentivize innovative initiatives. We need leadership, championship, and accountability. We need to combat fronting. We need to strengthen this tool, being the BEE Commission, so that we can reach areas, and our eye and scrutiny can reach areas that we currently are not able to because of our capacity. As I conclude, Rome is burning in South Africa. The bickering about important matters of our future can only carry on at the expense of missing opportunities and ultimately at the expense of possible collective peril. We are challenged to rally around this moment and to expand our efforts and time to more promising and positive effect. Universities such as the University of the Free State are in an opportune position to contribute to meaningful research onto the policy, interrogating it in a constructive manner, illuminating pathways through which we can advance it, and promoting wider knowledge about the policy. I traced the evolution of the policy in order to make the point and show the point that it is adaptable, it is amenable to responding to whatever is thrown at it by actual experience. It is amenable to be made fit for purpose, but only if there is sincere and shared commitment to addressing the demon of racial inequality in the economy. The commitment to transforming our economy into an economy for all and not the few. Only if there's sufficient magnanimity to see through the blinkers, the oogklaps of privilege that's bequeathed by an iniquitous history. Only if there is willingness to work together on the problems that separate us as compatriots. and which thereby stifle our potential as a nation. Only if there is a willingness to sign onto a shared future and shared prosperity. Some might say this is idealistic, but I believe it is possible. We have it within us to do it and to succeed. After all, it is those nations and economies that dare to idealize and visualize a better future, that prosper and thrive, that dare to break the shackles of pessimism, mediocrity, and stagnation, and that instead embrace possibility and opportunity. It is those nations that thrive and prosper. I believe we are capable of it. So I hear, and I'm sure we all hear, that the president has been talking about this big, grand national dialogue about the future of the country. It's been talked about, and they said it's going to be this year. My hope and expectation when that dialogue happens is that this subject of BEE and transformation is on the agenda. And I'm sure it is going to be a national dialogue that academics and the university and other universities will be interested in. And I'm sure you'll be keeping a close eye on developments in that regard. I thank you for your attention.
I don't think we appreciated that enough. Can we just give another? Thank you so much for the talk, Commissioner. It's a matter that touches each and every one of us as economic participants. So thank you for the insights. I don't know if you will be willing to take one or two questions, two maximum if they are burning questions. I know we are behind time, but since we have access to you, I don't know when next we're going to have this access. So perhaps if there's one or two questions that are burning, short and sweet. We're still thinking. Okay, I see there's one hand. We only have one mic.
Right, thank you. This is directed to the Commissioner of the B-BBEE. My question is about the World Bank has cited broad economic empowerment laws and anti-business policies as a deterrent to attracting foreign direct investment. Does it seem as if, I don't know, I'd like to ask him personally, does he personally think that BEE has achieved its goals in light of what's currently happening in the country right now? I'm sure we all know that there's a sort of discourse, taxes about, well, VAT is about to go up by, we don't know how much, but these kind of things are internationally cited as deterrents to growing the economy. I don't know, that's my question. I don't know if I should...
Right, thank you. I see there's just one more hand. I did say two questions. Wasn't a hand? Okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. I'm Sean Lakey. I just want to give my support to the BEE Commission. Wonderful job that you're doing. the gentleman raised a question which I answered on LinkedIn, well, put my statement on LinkedIn, is that we must change in our mindset and not be dictated to by the outside forces. And one of our biggest problems is capitalism taking over the inner being of a country or of a group of persons. And I always say to, I think it's the UIM, the DA, and if you can take your solidarities and all those guys together, why is it that the banks have level 1 and level 2 BE certificates if they're not that dependent on government business? So if they could do it, why can't the others do it? And I think one of the things that the Commission must really look into is that you come across as a very dictative in the legal framework, and the message that is going through is that the fronting issue, it's more what you want to pounce on as the Commission. And I think we need to open up the boundaries for everybody to be participative, and through this platform that you've created now, I think this is really going to be one of those things that are going to be stand out. So it's not much of a question, but just support for you.
All right, thank you.
I had a bit of the question, so you'll help me if I didn't quite get what you were saying. So there are two things I heard. One was, has BEE achieved its goal? All right, and then the other one was what the World Bank was saying about BEE recently. So I thought that the entire submission that I have made today is that, yes, BEE is making progress. There are beneficiaries of BEE today who are billionaires, multimillionaires on the back of the policy, owners of businesses that would probably not been able to get to where they are. So it is work in progress. It is work in progress. But we must accelerate the pace, and that's really the point I'm making. Because the reality of inequity and inequality is too stark. So we need to up our game a bit. And that's really the point that I'm making. Now, it's not the first time we hear that BEE is a deterrent to investment. But we haven't seen the evidence. So I haven't seen what the empirical basis of what the World Bank is saying. What I do know is that for foreign investment, there is a special dispensation. You don't, sometimes investors say, no, I don't want to give stake, I don't want to give shares. The policy of my country, my company doesn't allow me to give equity. And then we offer other alternatives. Surely you can do something. Surely you can contribute to skills development. Surely you can contribute to supplier development. Surely you're going to be sourcing goods from South Africa. So I haven't quite heard. So I'm very concerned, in fact, about that statement from the World Bank, because it is actually the very World Bank that 5 years, 10 years maybe ago, released a report which spoke to South Africa's unfinished transition, and where they were demonstrating that the economy is still very much in the hands of a few, and that this is unsustainable. So how do they flip now and say the policy, because they were actually saying that the policy is not achieving the kind of impact, objectives intended, quick enough, acknowledging progress, acknowledging change. Definitely there is change, but not enough of it. So they said that. I was at the presidency at the time. You heard I was in the National Planning Commission. We actually worked with them on that report. So I have to go and look into that report. I don't want to rely on what was in the media, because the media, they are very selective. They give a slant to particular issues because they want to drive a particular narrative that says we shouldn't do this thing. No, it's too important. We must find a way of making it work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, and thank you for indulging us.